All right, welcome to the show, to this episode of Stand for America. Um, Tonight we're gonna be talking about the Save Act. Um, had a friend of mine help me out and showed me how to play some clips, so you don't have to look at my ugly mug all the time. So, well, you know. And also you'll notice that the screen has CNN on it. Tonight, we're going to listen to the other side talk about the SAVE Act. Now, there are going to be, I think, two people on this panel that are going to speak pro SAVE Act. Just a little bit of information as we head in. 83% of Americans, as of October, there was a poll done in October, 83% think that we should have voter identification. So this is an 80-20, and here we go.
Tonight, in Donald Trump's quest to overhaul American elections, the president says he sees a path.
Okay. Already. CNN starting. He's not trying to overhaul anything. He's trying to make them more secure. When you require people to prove that they're a citizen before they vote, you can only secure the vote. And a lot of what we're going to get into is they're going to say that, people can't get an ID. But one thing I want everyone to keep in mind is that you have to have a driver's license or some form of ID to do so many things. You got to have it to pretty much to sign up for anything. You have to have it to, rent a car. You have to have it to rent a car. You just buy a bottle of alcohol. You can't buy beer without an ID. And these people are arguing that because we are asking them to go into the same spot that they got that ID and register to vote and bring in a birth certificate. Everybody can get their birth certificate. If you can't, I heard a lady say something brilliant the other day. She said, you can't be dumb with a smartphone in your hand. In other words, look it up, Google that stuff. So, here we go. My computer's slow. I'm new at this
Forward.
podcast
In a
stuff.
vote
I'm
that
working
fell
on it.
largely on party lines, this week, House Republicans and one Democrat passed the Save America Act, which would impose strict new voter identification rules, including documentary proof of citizenship in person for voter registration.
It's the Save America Act, and the Democrats are against it. I heard one of them say, we will stop the Save America Act. No, we're trying to save America. And it has to do with largely voting. And basically, it's got three very simple points. It's got voter ID, photo ID, but voter ID with a photo, right? It's got the confirmation of U.S. citizenship. And then you have no mail-in ballots. And there would be no mail-in ballots, very important. That will assure the security of our crooked elections.
Okay. So this reporter is about to tell you that it does not include the mail-in ballots. I'm not sure if it does or not. I will tell you this. You can look it up. Once again, just Google that stuff. If you type in Save Act, you can look it up. I would recommend looking it up, reading it, knowing what you're voting on, knowing what you expect your representatives to vote on. And if you like what you see, contact your representative. If you don't, contact your representative. That's how our country works. It's a great thing. Here we go.
We have crooked elections.
And just to be clear, the SAVE Act does not include a ban on mail-in ballots, despite what the president just said there in that clip.
The mail-in ballots thing
But
is the only
the other
bad
part
thing
of
about
it has been more controversial. It's not just a voter ID bill or law that they would like to pass. It's also something that would require you to show up in person with some proof of your citizenship. And no, you're
Okay. To have the right to get to vote on what goes on in your country should not be just super easy. And it's not going to be super easy, especially if you're going to make sure that the only people that are voting are citizens when you just let 10 million or more in the country. It's not going to be easy. Thanks to the 4 years that they let people in, a lot of things in our lives are going to have to change to make that right. That's why they're trying to get the bad out now. But I agree with Tom Homan and Trump on the fact that, do I think that they should go knocking on every door looking for every person here? No. Do I think there are some people that should be given the right to stay? You know, you've been here 10 years, you haven't been in any trouble. We can talk. But for the most part, if you're here illegally, unfortunately, because of what Biden did, they've got to go. I mean, it's not being mean. It's looking out for our country. It's looking out for us. Having that many people here that aren't citizens and that aren't documented in some way is going to cost us all kinds in social services. You know, the hospitals have that Hippocratic Oath thing. They can't turn anybody away. So we need voter ID just to make sure that the people that are voting are American citizens. I don't think that that's wrong or discriminative in any way.
real ID wouldn't count. No, you could not just show up with your driver's license. You would have to bring your passport or your birth certificate. So that's what's made this controversial.
And that's hard to get.
And I
Shouldn't
think
be.
it's a
Got a
real
smartphone.
question, a debate to have in this country about whether that is even necessary, Joe.
Yeah, it's great to have a debate, but we have to remember that 80% of the people have a general understanding about what voter ID is. They have an understanding that, voter ID at some form is in about 25 states. I personally am sick of sort of the circles that we always run, where Republicans are saying, this many cases of voter fraud have happened. Democrats will say, well, that's not indicative of, massive voter fraud. I want to hear where in those 23 or 24, 25 states that have voter ID laws in place already, where people are required to show an ID, where is the massive studies of people being disenfranchised? In fact, it's the opposite is true. You remember, I think it was 2021, the MLB All-Star Game pulled out of Georgia because Georgia was implementing voter ID and it was going to disenfranchise voters. The number of gubernatorial voters went from the year before 1.1 million to 1.9. Bakari, your state, I looked it up. South Carolina, because I know they're a voter ID state. They went from 56% voter turnout in the presidential year in 2012 to 61% in 2020 and then like 65% in 2024. Those are more people voting in states that have passed voter ID laws. So this is why I think the majority of Americans reasonably can look at it and say this is a good thing.
You just wasted about 3 minutes and we're not talking about voter ID. So the
the fundamental thing of the SAVE Act is requiring proof of who you are.
That's two different things. So Voter
How
ID
is it?
means that you have to have a driver's license
Sure.
or, the real ID that you use.
Understood, yep.
No,
that
that's
doesn't
not-
count under the SAVE Act. So the SAVE Act, I just want to tell you so
It
the
does
viewers
count.
understand,
It
means
does
that you
count
have to have
after you
proof of
prove you're a
citizenship.
citizen.
You also can't
You
do
just
those
can't
things
prove
online.
you're a citizen
So
with it.
42 states out of the 50, since we're not quoting numbers of states, their entire online voter registration systems are going to be tossed out the window. That's going to cost states like South Carolina money. The other thing is there are 52% of Americans
No,
that are registered to
re-registering.
vote right now
You can
literally
do it
do
online.
not have access to an unexpired passport.
I don't even have a
That's
passport.
important.
I voted
11% of
in every
registered voters
election.
right
You
now don't
have
have
to have a
access to proof
passport
of
to
citizenship.
to
That's
vote.
important. Now, we're just talking about people, black, white, and otherwise, poor folk, whatever, in that number. If you want to talk about the discriminatory effect, we're talking about poor people who don't have access to those things to be able to get to the DMV, to
Then
be
how
able
do
to
they
get
get
to
their driver's
places where you can
license
get
or
a
their ID?
passport.
Our
How do
government
they buy
expects a lot
cigarettes?
of
How do
us.
they buy
Every
alcohol?
single year, every single person is expected to file their taxes, something that is very complicated.
You can do it
People
online.
have to outsource. During COVID,
But you can do it online.
people had to go and get a vaccine in person. I went twice. I had to carry my little
does that
card
have to
around
do with
me. I had to
voting?
carry my little card
because
around.
No,
me.
no, no,
Now
no,
listen
we're
to
way
a
off
young
track
sister
on
and
this.
then
No,
later
no,
on
The
they're
government
telling me
expects,
that
the government
birds
expects
listen
a
to this.
lot of
Can I-
things of people for
Can I
taxes.
just explain to you the
all kinds of
difference?
things.
Can I tell you the
Why
difference?
can't we expect?
Can I tell you the difference?
Why can't we
Can I
expect
just explain to you the
something
fundamental
far
difference?
less onerous
Yes,
for
yes,
proving
please.
that you are
Would you-
who
would
you
you
are?
correct
The difference is you've
Please,
listed a lot of things.
please,
You listed a
please.
lot of things in this country that are privileges. We're not talking about privileges. Voting is a constitutional right in
Taxes
this.
are a privilege?
Yes, voting is a constitutional right. Tell me
You
the
hear that?
enumeration in the enumeration
get
of the
the
Constitution where it says you must pay
privilege
this X, Y, Z. We're not even talking about that. You're talking about restaurants. You're talking about vaccinations. You're talking about all these things. You're talking about driving. No, we're talking about the right
Things
to
where
vote.
things where the security is actually much
Right.
less stringent and much more sacred than voting.
Can I ask you a question?
On a plane
Wait, wait a
is
second.
going to be
Hold on.
easier
Is
than
that
Hold on,
voting.
hold on.
Joe,
Under the
let me-
SAFE Act,
Joe,
under the
let me
SAFE Act,
ask you a
can
question.
someone vote by
Hold on.
affidavit?
Joe.
They can. So even if you
Joe,
don't
hang
have
on
the
a
right
second.
ID, you can still vote by affidavit and it'll
Let
count
me ask you a
down the road.
question. Why can't we ask the government to do what they have the ability to do, which is to verify people's
This lady has a
citizenship?
good idea right
Why
here.
is
Except for the fact that if we are to do this, if we were to let the government make the list of people that can vote, and the government makes a mistake and your name is not on it, who do you think is going to be the first people to jump out and say the votes are rigged? Especially if the people are Democrats. The government can't make the list because it can't prevent you from voting. The government cannot stop you from voting if you're a United States citizen unless you have done something that has made it to where you're not eligible to vote. So just here we go. We'll let these people. They're making a big deal, and they're trying to find something wrong, and they are saying that, well, this is just security we don't need. When it comes to the secure, how secure our vote, our elections are, the security of our elections is important enough to where we can ask everyone, hey, if you want to vote, you need to prove you're a citizen. You got to have a birth certificate. You got to come in, show us your birth certificate, and then when you come in, you got to have your voter right. You got to have an ID card. That's it. That's all it is. And the funny thing is look at how much they're throwing a fit. They're trying to find something wrong.
the onerous
where
on the
there's nothing
person and
wrong.
not the government, who is the keeper of the records?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Look,
Great
if you have to
question.
show some proof and then the government
Great
can
question.
match it
Because-
against the database,
Yeah,
I'm
because
fine
that's-
with that.
well,
Yeah, see,
that's
he
what
said,
Joe-
and then the
That's
government can
exactly how
match
the
it.
system works right now.
Abby.
Right now, hold on.
Yeah.
Right now, in the United States of America, this has been true for 25 years. When you're applying for a voter to register to vote, you have to produce either an ID or a social security number. The government
No, you don't.
is
Not in this
then
state. Not in this state.
Not
Not in
all
this
The
state.
states.
government, that's a federal law. That's a federal law. Every state, okay?
There is no
When
federal
you're
law. That's what
registered
they're
to
flipping
vote,
out
ID.
about. They're
I
flipping
didn't
out
hear what I
because
said.
So you
Listen,
Trump
Joe.
wants to pass
Joe.
a national
Listen,
law.
when you
Joe.
register.
Listen,
They want to
Joe.
pass
I mean,
a
when you-
federal
When you are
law
registering to
about
vote,
register to vote
Here,
the
I'm gonna
first
yell
time.
over these
when you
people. I don't
register to
Initially.
I
vote
got
for
a
the
pause
first
button.
time.
I don't have to yell over them. I got a pause button. Okay, so one of the problems that the Democrats are having with this is they're saying that Trump's trying to nationalize the election. What that lady just said is it's got to be incorrect because there are states that do not require you to show ID when you vote. Now, unless she's talking about when you register to vote, but even in that case, it's the same thing. It's what the SAVE Act is. So what they're saying is that it's already a law. We just want to make it a national law. We want to make sure that each state is the same in this aspect. Now, every other law, how they count them, who looks at them, whether it's computerized, whether it's hand counted, whether it's both, all of that is still left up to the state because that is very important in keeping it. We don't want a nationalized election, but having federal laws or rules when it comes to voting is only going to make it more secure. It's only going to make sure that our elections are truly what the people want, and that's what we need as citizens. We've got to have that because that's our power. So think about that while these people yell at each other and argue over voter ID.
You have to supply either an ID or a social security number. The government is the keeper of the records of who is eligible to vote and who is not, who is a citizen and who is not. They then keep a database, that's also part of the law, and they check against the database. I also think we should just keep in mind here, the Trump administration has already asked for voter records from a bunch of states. They got 50 million voter records. These are largely Republican states where they've got voter ID. They looked at the records, and guess what they found? They found almost no actual evidence of fraud. However, even if
Okay, what she just said, I don't know if she realizes what she just said, but what she just said was basically that they went into Republican states where they have the voter IDs and they found little to no discrepancies. Well, are you arguing for the point or against it? Because you made it sound like you were against it. But if what you're saying is there's only been one murder, we don't really have to worry about it. That's not true. And with our elections, we want to make sure that they're as legitimate as possible. Nobody's asking for perfection, but we want them to try and be as legitimate as possible because, like I said earlier, that's our power. That's where we control things is through the vote, and letting these politicians know, hey, that's not what we want. So that lady just basically said, hey, they went in and they looked at all this stuff and they found very little discrepancies.
Let's just take what they did find. Out of 50 million records, they found 10,000 that raised flags. So even in the states where there's voter ID, they're still finding flags, not
still a
proof
fair
of
amount.
fraud. But it's also, when they look even deeper, a lot of times these are false flags. These are people who actually are registered properly to vote, that the system is flagging.
Abby, does the SAVE
So
Act
the Trump
allow-
administration has had a whole year to look at this. They've looked, 50 million records. They've found virtually nothing, 0.02%.
And yet 80% of the public
something that
says
is
that you're not the
anomalous,
right
not even
position.
fraud.
Right? But just answer one question. If someone doesn't have an ID under the SAVE Act, are they permitted to vote via an affidavit? Are they permitted to vote? Can they vote?
Joe, I think
The answer is yes. This
Joe,
is
here's the
so
question.
overblown.
It is not overblown,
If someone
okay,
cannot produce the ID,
Joe,
they can go to their poll
respectfully,
site
I don't even
and
think you have a
vote
command of the
affidavit.
issue.
Well, I'm
Right
pretty
now,
sure I do.
you don't.
You
You're
can
talking
vote.
about voter ID, and that's not. We're talking about the SAVE Act specifically. So
If
I'm
you
trying to
don't
keep us
have
on
the
track, and I want to
qualifications
tell
to
the
vote
audience
under the
what
SAVE
this
Act,
means.
you can
Right
vote
now,
via affidavit.
We've
It's
heard
permitted in the
a
law.
lot from you, so let me just try to weigh
Okay,
in.
sure, yeah. Go ahead.
Less than half of the American
Like
people
Joe.
have what it would take to comply with
that's
the
a problem.
SAVE
We gotta
Act.
figure that out.
That is a
Yeah.
huge problem.
And it's
exactly.
also false.
So
There's
when
no
you think
way
about
that
married
half
women, like
of
we were talking
people
about
in
during the
America
break,
don't
who
know how
if
to
they
get a
change
birth
their last name when
certificate.
they get
Democrats
married,
couldn't
that's
even
going to
decide
be.
what a
Let
Women,
me
if
finish
you've
my
done,
point.
when
Let me
they
have
get married,
the
I'd
they,
love to hear
they
their
lose all their
now we're talking
sense
about
and they cannot
this
go
is
out and
ridiculous.
get
Let me have the
let's
professional
not get
courtesy
An
to
ID.
finish
derailed.
my
Let's
my
please
point.
stay on the point.
Yeah,
Thank you.
please, thank you. Anyway, this is a problem that is in search, or a solution that's in search of a problem. There is not some outpouring of undocumented immigrants trying to vote, and that's what
Yes,
this is all
there
about.
is.
If
There
more
is
than half the people do
most
not have the
definitely an
documents
outpouring of
to support
immigrants. I
this
don't know if
act,
they're trying to
it is
vote or
clearly
not,
an
but
intimidation
they just
tactic.
let
We
in
heard from
10
Donald Trump
million
talking
plus.
about nationalizing elections. We've heard from Steve Bannon, who went to prison, Trump's advisor, saying they're going to have ICE patrols at election points.
Okay. This is where it gets absolutely loopy. This is where people should think before they speak. This lady just said that there are going to be ICE patrols at the polls. Why would ICE be patrolling the polls? The only people that can vote are citizens. So the odds are more people are going to be citizens there than are not going to be citizens there. Second, think about the manpower it would take to put ICE at every poll in the United States. I don't think there's enough ICE people. I don't think that we have enough people in it to do that. It would have to be something local. It would have to be a state. It would have to be a state organized thing. It would have to be like this state National Guard, which technically I guess Trump could call out the National Guard, but I think that would be a pretty big red flag if you call out the National Guard and send them to all the polls. I'm pretty sure that wouldn't work out for him. That's pretty. You can visit. You can see through that. You can tell what people are doing there. So fear mongering is horrible. You don't want people to be afraid to go to the polls. There's no reason to say that anybody is going to have anything at the polls. This is what I'm talking about. Where we're flying off the handle. I mean, we're saying stuff. She's saying stuff that just does not make sense. I mean, I haven't heard it. If it is out there, just think of it logistically. I mean, it just doesn't seem like it's feasible for him to do that without throwing off enough red flags to where, Republicans, such as myself, wouldn't back that. I mean, if for some reason there were soldiers at the polls, I mean, even if I guess ICE was there, they wouldn't really be doing anything wrong. They wouldn't be arresting citizens. So you really wouldn't have anything to worry about unless you were there to illegally vote. And then they'll get you for illegally voting and being here illegally. So that wouldn't make any sense. And it just, so why would we do that? Why, with what's going on with the ill feelings they have with the bad feelings that people have about ICE right now, why would we want to do that? So we'll let her go on with her little rant. She's definitely upset about something, and she's trying.
All of this is meant to limit the amount of people to vote. To Abby's point, if you wanted to ensure every American could vote, then the government, who we should expect things from our government, not about what the government
the same argument that people made about voter ID laws in all of the states.
People to vote at the age of 18 or when they're naturalized. If you want to encourage more people to vote,
Tiffany,
that's how you do it.
This is the same argument. This is the same argument that people used in every one of the 20-something states that have voter ID. Just tell me which state implemented some form of voter ID, voter registration rules.
And we still don't know. We still don't know why they were messing with Fulton County.
There is not one of those.
It goes right back to what Abby was just talking about. If they have researched all of this and they have found minimal pieces, most of these.
The minimus is the legal word.
Right. And so my point is,
how much fraud
that
is too
if
much?
this
At what
is
point do you
really
draw
a
that line?
pretext to suppress voting, then
Every
everybody at
illegal
this
vote
table should be
cancels out
concerned
illegal.
about
But
that.
you're making that
because
up.
of democracy. No, I'm not.
80%
No,
of
I am
America is on my side.
Oh, no.
Not
I don't know what
that
80% you're talking
Not
about.
often that happens at this table, but this time 80% of Americans are on the side of
Democracy,
The host is about to tell
democracy
that lady,
depends on people voting.
83.
he's right.
Joe is right. 83% of Americans, according to a Gallup poll, this was back in October, say that they agree that Americans should be required to provide.
There it is. This is what they were arguing over. This is how the American people, as of October 2024, so right before the election, (83% to 15%). It is ridiculous for them to say outrageous things like there's going to be ice at the polls. The only ice at the polls is it's going to be in November. I'm sure there's going to be ice at some of those polls. But with what has happened in the last 4 years, I feel like Biden doesn't know the trouble that he's caused. We would not be having all of the issues in Minneapolis. We would not be having all of the issues that we're having with ICE anywhere had he just followed federal law and left things alone. But that didn't follow their plan. They wanted to not only let people in, but do things that did nothing but cause thousands of people to come to America and risk their lives to get here, just to turn around and, like right now, they got to go. I'm not trying to be rude or mean, but the strain on our social services having 10 million plus unregistered people is outrageous. So Trump ran on it. He won the election. It was one of his top points. He made sure to say that he was going to have mass deportations. And he did say he was going to go after the worst first. And I agree. Go after the worst first. But if you're here illegally, they're going to come for you. Tom Homan has made that clear. He said, yes, we're going to get the worst first. But they are going to, they're going to try and get as many of those 10 million people out. And the good thing is about 1 million people have self-deported. So they can come back. Because to my understanding, if you self-deport, you can turn around and apply and get let into the country properly. But if they catch you, to my understanding, they're not letting you back in. You got to go. You can't come back. So, only thing I can say is that one good thing about the United States of America is that we, as the people, have the power to change anything that we do not like. We have to not like it in a large group, but get people to join your cause. Talk to your senators. Talk to your congressmen. Let them know how you feel. That's what they're there for. You let them know how you feel, and then they try and vote the best that they can to make their constituents happy. That's their job. Our job is to pick a good one, put them in there, and then tell them what we think of things. And their job is to do their best to vote whatever way would make the majority of their constituents happy. No one is going to make everybody happy 100% of the time. It's not going to happen. But it is very important to be that when you do vote, you vote you're educated when you do it. That's what I do this for, is to maybe give you a little bit of education. If not, maybe give you a little something to laugh at. With that being said, looks like this has been another episode. Go out and vote, but make sure you know what you're talking about when you do it, or you could do more damage than good. With that, I'm Stand for America. I'm sorry, Stand for America. Have a good evening.